while later. Right, okay, so I've got the drive shaft out, I've taken the brake caliper off, obviously, I've taken the hub off. Observations. Well, first and foremost, there is no great love of lock washers on this thing at all, anywhere. Every single bolt I've taken off so far, which should have a lock washer, hasn't. These things admittedly should have locked tabs, and these are tabbed over, but where the drive plate is bolted on, where the discs are bolted on, so where the hubs are bolted on, etc. If I turn the disc over, we'll probably find there's no lock washers on the back of the disc either. Nope, bolts straight in. Great. That's all right, soon fix that. It's just a bag of 3/16. Now, you can see here there's quite a lot of oil on the inside of the kind of the splash guard there. So some of this oil is going to be coming down the axle shaft and then back via the seal on the back of the hub. And down here you can see even more of it off the bolt there. I don't think it's actually the stub axle. I think it's actually coming out of the axle tube here, and then it's gone past the hub seal on the back there. So I'm going to have to take the stub axle off and find out what's going on. I'll also take the seal out. Too many of those, Richard, already. And the other observation I had on this was that when you put the wheel bearing on, bearing in mind the wheel bearing face, let's balance that up there, looks like that. Okay, it's a nice gentle surface. Then there's a keyed spacer which is supposed to go on top of that, which sits in this keyway here. And when you tighten the nut up, which was fiendishly tight, and when you tighten the wheel nut up to basically take out the end float on the wheel bearing itself, the keyed spacer stops the bearing from turning. Okay? And the keyed spacer then becomes sacrificial against the nut. Well, if it ain't there, then it ain't sacrificial. So I suspect that this bearing is, in fact, there's bloody great big lumps of metal on it. So bloody great lumps of metal which have come off the nut because the spacer wasn't there. And yeah, I'm probably going to say that's trashed, really, because the nut's been done up directly onto the back of the bearing rather than via a spacer. Oh dear. Never mind. Let me get this stub axle off, which is the next thing I'm going to do. Quite why there's oil right the way up here, I'm not entirely sure yet. The disc is saturated all the way round, and because the brakes have never been bled, only one of the pads has got some light contamination, but I'm inclined to change them. Any contamination of oil on the pads is not going to help them when they get hot. Other than that, I mean, it's all fairly straightforward, just nut and bolt stuff. So this ring here, if I get the lamp back a little bit, this ring here, behave yourself, Dale's light. This ring here actually has these lock kind of tabs which you just bang against the bolts, so that's intact, so you wouldn't necessarily need lock washers on here. You can't get these new anymore. What invariably happens is these lock tabs break off, in which case when that's happened then you need to put a lock washer underneath it to stop these things kind of working their way loose in service. Certainly the caliper should have bolts. I'm not entirely convinced that the caliper had the right bolts in it. I always thought the caliper bolts should have a shank on them. They ain't. And because of that, yeah, so I'm going to find the correct caliper bolts. Right, so let's get this thing apart and see what's going on. I don't film me taking it apart because it's just a shitload of stuff for me to edit when I'm kind of undoing it all. But damper looks nice. These are quite fierce, these dampers. I think with the yellow polybush and the heavy-duty springs, I think this is going to be not a tame Range Rover. This is not going to be the magic carpet ride on this one. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'll give it that when it's done. When it's done. Right, knock those tabs back. Let's get the stub axle off, and I shall come back to you. Didn't that not close? It's cloudy at the top there. I think the door's closing on this car at the moment. Right now is the least of its worries. Well, that got to the bottom of it. Yeah, there's no gasket, or there's remains of a gasket. So there's a chunk of gasket. So again, we're kind of like leaning on the fact that this thing was just kind of largely just thrown together at the tail end of its kind of last person that's working on it. So they've just literally just thrown the thing together, which kind of makes sense. Right, so I shall assemble the stub axle. I'm going to clean the stub axle up. I shall assemble it back onto the axle with a new gasket. Oh yes, I'll clean up the faces first of all. Now, what is that shit there? It's just glue. That's fine. It's just grease that's made its way from the stub axle. Although that feels a bit gritty. Nah, it's just shite. It's just shite. I'm not going to dig into the axle at the back here, I don't think. Front axle actually wasn't too bad, but... Right, let's have a look at this. This is the left-hand rear hub. So this is the one that was missing the spacer on top of the wheel bearing. So wheel bearing comes out first. Well, someone's lubed it up at least, which is nice. However, I fear that it's going to be fucked because another big lump of metal there. In fact, the cage, no, cage is not broken. It's very sharp around the edges of the cage. I think I'm probably going to end up putting new bearings in this thing. What I'll do is I'll flip him over. And yeah, it's got a twin lip seal on it, but it's only been half installed. Now it could well be that the seal came out a little bit when I was trying to pull it off the shaft, so to speak, but no, the seal's actually torn. There we are. So the seal has torn itself somehow. So that's why all the oil's come out then. So yeah, mixture of little bit of oil came out because the gasket was missing on the stub axle. That's now been corrected. And I just, well, used a decent gasket. Country of origin UK. Not all the stuff is shit, guys, yeah, but you know, if it's got a G on the end of it, it's very good. Acceptable. Now these bearings, I think these are Timken originals, but because of already the lumps of swarf I've seen on this thing and the damage to the back of it, where the nut's been done directly onto it, I mean, yes, a Timken original bearing, I'm inclined to say that that is fucked. Because there was no spacer in there. I haven't got one. I'm going to have to order a pair of those up, which is fucking irritating. So all I can really do here is strip this down and get this this ready so it can go back together again. I can actually get it mounted onto the stub axle and just leave the nut loose on it. But basically, it looks almost exactly the same as a lock washer, which I have got. There's the lock washer. Looks almost exactly the same as that, but it's fatter. It's quite you know, it's probably about 5 or 6 times the thickness of that. And it sits over that, and it locks into the key on the stub axle. And then when you do the nut up, it gouges this, and not the fucking bearing. Probably no need to swear, Richard, there, but you know, when people take things apart and then don't put them back together as they come apart. Now obviously we're going to have to go over this thing and give this a proper degrease because it is covered. Right, so the seal has failed, and I did something rash the other day. Something so rash that I've not even opened it yet. I know you folks are desperate for me to do something sensible in my life. Well, there you go. I've done something sensible. Invested some of the donations to my channel into a hub puller. Look how fucking easy that was. That was beautiful, that was. Yeah, I mean, that's shot, isn't it, really? That can go in the recycle. Boing. The other bearing, I'm probably going to change both bearings at the same time, to be quite honest. I don't know if this is an ancient bearing. There's just grit and crap all around the outside of it because there's been nothing on the sealing side. So I think really where I'm going to go with this, I'm probably going to undo the disc. In fact, I'm not even going to copy it. I am going to undo the disc. Oh, that was tight. So, that was tight, wasn't it? Right, disc can come off. Is it going to come off? It should come off. Might need a tap, folks. Right. Oh, God help us. Oh, tired with it. Maybe. Not fucking moving. Oh, it is moving. It is moving. Coming off at a jaunty angle. Yeah, he's off. Yeah, we got paint all over the back of it. That's good. Loose paint as well, huh? Let's put the disc down because that can just be cleaned up. I'll give that a clean up and go straight back on again. After I've cleaned all the paint off here, of course, look. So. Lovely, eh? Right, well, I'll get on with this because I need to put the radio on while I'm doing this because otherwise it's just boring. Yeah, I'll come back to you. Well, I cleaned it all up and I got the old bearing shells out of it. Then I was kind of looking at it thinking, this edge up here, I mean, someone really has been at that, haven't they, trying to get the disc off it. When you get the disc off, folks, and it's a used disc, hold the hub that way up, percuss the disc. It's sacrificial. Don't beat the shit out of the bloody hub. I need to check this now for roundness, I guess, for want of a better word. We've got your burlier. Right, just shy of 79. Nearly 80. It's about, it varies about a millimetre. I think it's probably okay. I might just take, I'm reluctant to do anything in there because that's the face that the seal goes on to. But yeah, someone's been an absolute gibbon in there. It happens. Right, let's go and put some new bearings in. So those are scrap. Bearings are courtesy of Timken. No point messing around with bearings. Might as well just put the part in. So RTC 3429G indicates OE spec. Warning. Oh, there's warnings apparently. Right, so let's have that open. And what I'll do is I'll go and put these two races in the container. So that goes in there okay. I think this outer trueness, I mean you can see it. I won't lift the camera up. Clank, 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 clank. You can see here when I just lay this thing in here, it's really tight on that edge there. And up here. But other than that, it's fairly round. I guess. I don't know if I could. Oh, so fucking tight I can't get that out. Just wondering if it's just the edge that's done that. It's not very helpful, is it? I'm guessing if I start percussing that back out again, then I'm going to risk breaking the casing. Then it is a scrap hub. At the moment, I think it's serviceable. Fucking thing. It's a pile of crap. Just no end to the fucking gibbonry, is there? going to be a scrap hub, it's going to be a scrap hub. That's a bit better. It's out here, but I'm not so worried about the out bit. It's just a bit better, that's all. Maybe a little bit more down there, but... Right, let's go and push these bearing shells in, and then I can refit the thing back onto the stud axle. Right, all cleaned up. Inner race installed. New rear bearings. These are RTC 3511G, which is the 12mm pre-85 hub oil seal. Twin lipped, very nice. And that, so this bloody fits in here. It's just going in. It's not as easy as it could be, I'll be honest. I'm using rubber on rubber, folks, but down. Have I distorted that? No, I don't think I have. No, it's not distorted. Just pop straight back out again. It has distorted. It has distorted there. I can come out. That was a fuck up, Richard. Cretin. Right, let's get another 3511. Just hope that it's not going to be down to that distorted. Let's just try a little bit more weight and more precision. Working around the edges of the seal. Is where the handle's hitting the maybe some of you are gassed out there. Good God, look how much putting that oil seal in. Well, it works for me. It's working. Go a bit further than that though. So this is where it starts getting a bit tricky now, because I don't want to be pushing down on this lip here. So how am I going to do that? Is that the right size? Well, it's not far off it, I tell you now. It's working. Working beautifully. That's done that. It's in. So it appears that the distortion is only on the edge, because as soon as it went past that lip, it's gone in. Now, all I then do is I lube up between the two halves of the twin lip on the seal. So that's just a tube that came with my press kit. Right, now do the other. Well, before I put this on, what I do is I put the pack between the two halves of the bearing. I pack that with grease as well. Just using lolly sticks here. I get off on Amazon. Various other suppliers are available. You just buy a big box of lolly sticks, and they're brilliant for absolutely everything, from stirring your coffee to packing bearings out, whilst keeping your hands relatively free of contamination. Right, that's all gone in there. Next, I think I'm going to position the hub onto the the stub axle and then pack the other bearing out. I'll pack the other bearing out in advance. Now, as I say, I haven't got the spacer, so I'm not going to be able to nip this up yet. So what I'm going to have to do, I think, is put the nut on it just to hold everything in place, and just drop the drive shaft back in, and keep the dust and crap out of there. There we are. Just pack the grease into the top of the bearing. It just forces it all in, and obviously when I'm rolling it around backwards and forwards, it's going to force grease in and around all of the rollers, and it's going to be as happy as a pig in shit. Right, let's go put this on. And it's back on, so I've literally just wound a nut on there so that it's not set in any way yet, but the bearings, the hub seal and everything are back on the stub axle. I've put the drive shaft in there just to keep the dirt and grease off the outer bearing, and yeah, I need to order the spacers for the back end, and I also need to order the correct bolts to hold the brake caliper on. Now, because of the gibmanry that's taken place on this side, I'm going to repeat this entire process on the other side. I'm going to take the other side apart. There's no way can I trust it. Having seen what I've seen on the other three corners of this car, that's the last corner. And then the other thing I want to do while I've got the wheel off is just check the torque on these kind of radius arm bolts, the A-frame bolts, etc. Fun and games, oh yes. But that's a world better now. Once I get the spacer in there and done the wheel bearings up, that'll be fully serviced. New seals, new gaskets, new bearings, new disc, new caliper. The disc and caliper came with the car, but the rest of it really has been replaced. Not too bad. I think it was about an hour and 45 on this side, and now I need to do the other side. Nothing particularly horrific to report on the driver's side, right-hand side. Predictably, stub axle's got paint all over the bearing face, and you can see here it has already started to fail, just not quite managed to get as far as the brake back plates. Bearings were in a better shape. It actually had the spacer in there. Let me go and show you what the spacer looks like. There we are, one spacer. Like I say, all it does is it acts as a barrier, spacer, whatever you want to call it, in between the fragile face of the bearing and the harsh turning action of the locking nut. That's all it is. Miss it out, you fuck the bearings up. It's quite easy. Right, all I'm really going to do here, I'm going to clean this up, clean the stub axle up and get it back onto the car. Again, the splash guard is in fairly good order. It's still got all its tabs on it. I tend to, when I'll put it back together again, I'll put it back together with a little bit of thread lock on each of the bolts anyway. And then the stub axle can be in place, and then I'll start working on the hub. Paint is that went onto this kind of dirt shield, but it's falling off. And because of that, I've got kind of bare steel now over the whole bloody thing. Whereas the other one, look, just wipes off. That's paint, that is. So I'm guessing that someone rattle canned it before degreasing it, etc, etc, etc. That's fine, it's not a problem. I can clean that up, I'll degrease it, I'll rattle can it. And similarly on the stub axle here, you can see the paint around the edge here. Well, it's doing nothing. In fact, if anything, it's trapping the rust underneath. So again, kind of like probably a relatively new stub axle on this side. The other side I'm not so sure about. I didn't actually pay that much attention to it. It wasn't anywhere near kind of this painted. I'm not sure that this side has even been apart recently. Scoop that one straight into the bloody bin. Didn't go on the floor, folks. Didn't go on the floor. And again, all on the outside here. Just scrape it off. So I'm inclined to give it a waft. Obviously nowhere near any of the gasket faces. There is a gasket on this one, and it's quite shiny underneath, which is why it's kind of leading me to believe that this one might be newer than the other stub axle. Interestingly, it has been painted onto the seal face. That's the remains of the gasket. So what I'll do is I will fit it onto the axle. I will put masking tape around the interface where the hub seal goes, and then I'll rattle can it. It's the easiest way, and then it can dry while I'm carrying on. I'm going to need to clean this paint off this bearing face though, because that is just silly. There's no real weight going into this boat. It's not like I'm going at it with a file. It could be worse. I could be scratching it with a screwdriver. Connects quite nicely. Right, let's have a look at that now. It will obviously degrease before it goes on. Yeah, there's still a fair amount of paint. I mean, it's bloody great lumps of it on there. I don't understand, folks, I really don't, but that's just me. I'll stop banging on about people who paint bearing and seal faces. In a minute, it'll happen, you know it. What's the top of my head looking like? So it wasn't long before this one was going to start leaking. Right, I'm going to clean that up, clean myself up, get this thing back together. Very damn close to getting this thing back together again. Today, it's a Friday, it's 5:30. I've had enough today. But basically cleaned all the hub up, taken all the bearing faces out. And I thought, I'll just pop the disc back on. Can you see? Odd one out. So I need to get another disc bolt. The trouble is, these bolts, as a part, are unobtainium. But the bolt is just a UNF. I think it's a 3/8 UNF. It's probably an 8.8 tensile. Looks like it. I'd have to clean it up properly to know for sure. I don't think I've got any 8.8s in here. I've got an old hub outside. In the works, in the container, and I'll whiz one of the bolts off that. But for crying out loud, I mean, come on, chaps, it's not difficult, is it really? But yes, other than that, life has gone swimmingly today. I thought I might be able to get this done, and then I thought, you know what, it's 5:30 now. I'm not going to finish this till gone 6, and it's Friday on a bank holiday weekend. Oh, the other thing I did do, by the way, I pulled all the brake lines off the back axle because basically I wanted to route them the right way around. And yeah, the T-piece had been installed upside down, so the brake flexi was pointing in the wrong direction. All been connected up to the chassis line, but not actually gone through the hole on the floor. And I suspect what's happened is the chassis was built up as a rolling chassis, and this was just put in just to be ready for when the body got dropped back down onto it again. Alas, the T-piece being the wrong way round meant that the two axle lines were also on the wrong sides of it. That's easy enough to do because I can just undo that one, flip the bolt the other way up, and put the flexi the other way round. Yes. This is one of those kind of Automech kits. I think it's Automech, I don't know. It's got the yellow tags on it. They're numbered. Look at that. That's nice, isn't it? But it looks, is it copper? It's tougher than copper. Yes, I'm going to need to straighten those out somehow. I don't know how I'm going to straighten them out yet, but we'll see. Upside down. God.